I dropped the changing pad on their kitchen counter harder than I meant to. The thud echoed through the silence while my mother-in-law and father-in-law stared at me from their worn floral couch, their faces frozen in that same expectant expression they'd worn for the past 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. A crib, Janet, a whole crib, plus a car seat, a wagon, and now you want a high chair too? The words came out sharper than I intended, but I was tired, so incredibly tired. My son had been up 3 times last night, I'd worked a full shift at the hospital, and here I was at 7 in the evening, standing in this house that smelled like mothballs and old coffee, being asked for more. Janet smiled that sweet grandmother smile, the one that made you feel guilty for even questioning.
Well, dear, it's just that Trevor is getting so big now, almost a year old. We can barely manage him during nap time with that pack and play. My back, you know? Your back, I repeated slowly, and Frank's knees aren't what they used to.
B, she continued, gesturing to her husband, who nodded vigorously, if we had proper furniture, we could take better care of him, maybe even keep him overnight sometimes. Wouldn't that be nice? You and David could have a date night.
Something cold settled in my stomach. Overnight, with a woman who'd been diagnosed with early Alzheimer's just 4 months ago, with a man who'd fallen asleep in his recliner 3 times during their last babysitting day, leaving Trevor to crawl around unsupervised. We never asked you to babysit, I said quietly. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Excuse me? Janet's smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. You asked us. You wanted 1 day a week with Trevor. We said yes because you seemed so excited, but we never needed you to watch him. We have daycare. Frank stood up then, all 6 feet of him, his jaw set in that stubborn way my husband had inherited. Now listen here, Margaret. That boy is our grandson, our only grandchild. We have a right to... A right? The word burst out of me before I could stop it. You have a right to ask me to spend over $2,000 on furniture for your house? It's not just furniture, Janet said, her voice trembling now. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. It's about being part of his life, about being a real family. Don't you want that for Trevor? There it was, the guilt card, the one they'd played every single week since Trevor was born. Every time I'd suggested they visit us instead. Every time I'd hesitated about leaving him there. Every time I'd questioned anything. I reached into my diaper bag and pulled out my phone, scrolling to the notes I'd been keeping, the ones I hadn't shown David yet, the ones that made my stomach hurt to read. Let me tell you what I want, I said, my voice steadier now. I want to know why Trevor's diaper was on backwards last Tuesday. I want to know why he came home hungry at 5 in the afternoon when I'd sent 3 full meals with him. I want to know why there was a bruise on his forehead 2 weeks ago that you said came from just a little tumble, but couldn't tell me where or how. Janet's face went pale. Those things happen with babies. They're so fast. And I want to know, I continued, my heart pounding now, why David found his baby book in your recycling bin last month when he took out the trash. Silence. Complete, crushing silence. That was an accident, Janet whispered. I was cleaning out the closet and... His baby book, Janet, the only one he has from his adoption, the only record of his first year with you, in the recycling. Frank's face turned red. You went through our trash? David took out your trash because you asked him to. He saw it there, on top, like you just tossed it. I made a mistake, Janet said, and now there were real tears. I've been making mistakes. The doctor said it would happen. But I love Trevor. I love him so much. Don't take him away from us. And there it was, the truth neither of them wanted to say out loud. Janet wasn't functioning as well as they'd been pretending, and they both knew it. I sat down heavily in the chair across from them, suddenly exhausted. I'm not taking him away, but I can't keep doing this. Every week you ask for more things, more money, more time. And every week Trevor comes home and something is off. A missed meal, an unexplained bump.
Last week, his medicine wasn't given. The one for his ear infection. The one he was supposed to get at noon.
I forgot, Janet admitted, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I wrote it down, and I still forgot. I know, I said gently. That's why I think it's time we make a change. No, Frank's voice was hard. No changes. We have arrangements. David agreed. David agreed before his mother was diagnosed, before we knew how fast this was progressing. It's not progressing, Frank insisted. She's fine. One little diagnosis and everyone acts like she's helpless. She's still my Janet, still Trevor's grandmother. We deserve to have him 1 day a week. We deserve that much. Deserve. There was that word again. I stood up slowly, gathering the diaper bag, the changing pad, all the supplies I'd hauled over here every single Monday for the past 6 months.
You know what I deserve, Frank? I deserve to not feel sick to my stomach every Monday. I deserve to not check my phone every 15 minutes at work wondering if he's okay. I deserve to not lie awake at night wondering if I'm being paranoid or if my gut instinct is trying to tell me something. So that's it? Janet's voice broke. You're just going to cut us off? After everything we've done? After all the years we waited for a grandchild? I'm saying you can visit, anytime, as often as you want, at our house, where I have all the supplies and furniture already, where Trevor is comfortable and safe. Safe, Frank repeated bitterly. You think he's not safe with us? I looked him dead in the eye. I think Janet needs support right now. Real support. Not the added stress of caring for an active 1-year-old every week. And I think you need to stop pretending everything is fine when it's not. Get out, Frank said. Frank, Janet started. Get out of our house. His hands were balled into fists at his sides. Take your supplies and your accusations and get out. And you tell David his mother would like to speak to him, without you. I felt something crack in my chest. This was it, the line in the sand. Choose them or choose me. Except David wasn't here, and I was the one who had to carry this message home. I'll tell him, I said quietly. I walked to the door, my arms full of baby supplies, my heart hammering. Then I stopped and turned back. For what it's worth, I know you love Trevor. I know you love David. But love isn't enough if someone gets hurt because we all pretended everything was okay. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out into the cool evening air, loaded everything into my car, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before I could steady my hands enough to drive. My phone buzzed. A text from David. How's drop-off? Mom said she had something to ask you. I stared at the message, then at the house where I could see Frank and Janet through the window, their heads close together, talking urgently. Something to ask me. Right. Like we hadn't just had that conversation. Like they'd planned this. Like they'd known I would say no, and they'd already strategized how to go around me to their son. I drove home in silence, Trevor babbling happily from his car seat in the back, blissfully unaware that his Monday routine was about to change, that his grandparents were probably calling his father right now with their version of events, that I was about to walk into my house and start a fight that might not end well. David's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. He came out the front door before I'd even turned off the engine, his face confused. Mom just called, he said as I got out. She's crying. She said you told them they can't see Trevor anymore. What happened? I unbuckled Trevor and held him close, breathing in his baby shampoo smell, steadying myself. That's not what I said. Let's talk inside. Margaret, she's really upset. Dad got on the phone and David ran his hand through his hair, that gesture he made when he was stressed. He said you accused them of hurting Trevor. Is that true? Inside, I repeated firmly. Please. We went in. I put Trevor in his playpen with his favorite blocks, then stood in our kitchen facing my husband, the man I'd been with for 8 years, the man who'd held my hand through 14 hours of labor, the man who was looking at me right now like I was a stranger. Start from the beginning, he said. So I did. I told him about the furniture requests, about the $2,000 they expected us to spend, about the missed medication and the backwards diaper and the bruises we kept explaining away, about the baby book I'd never mentioned because I didn't want to hurt him. His face went white at that last part. My baby book? The one with all the adoption papers? David found it, in their recycling, last month when you took out their trash. You said you found it in the attic. I lied. I asked him to put it back in their house when they weren't looking. I didn't want you to know your mom had thrown it away. He sat down slowly at the kitchen table. She wouldn't. She's kept that book for 36 years. She has Alzheimer's, David. She's forgetting things, important things. It's early stage. The doctor said she'd be fine for years. The doctor said she's in the early stages, not that she'd be fine, and it's been 4 months. 4 months, and she's already declining faster than anyone expected. You don't know that. Not a neurologist. I'm a nurse. I see this every day at work, and I'm seeing it in your mother. I pulled out my phone and opened notes. May 3rd, forgot to give Trevor his antibiotic. May 10th, couldn't remember if she'd fed him lunch. May 17th, left the stove on after warming his bottle. May 24th, called him David 3 times. May 31st, that's yesterday, couldn't figure out how to unlock the safety gate we've had installed for 2 months. David stared at the phone screen. Why didn't you tell me any of this? I tried. Every time I brought up concerns, you said I was being overprotective. You said your parents deserved time with Trevor. You said I was being paranoid because I'm a first-time mom. Because you are paranoid sometimes. You wouldn't let my mom give him a bottle for the first 3 months because you were afraid she'd warm it wrong. She has Alzheimer's, David. Early stages. And it's progressing. My voice cracked. And I'm not going to wait until something terrible happens to prove I was right. I'm not going to be the mother who ignored her instincts because she didn't want to make waves. Trevor started crying in his playpen, startled by our raised voices. We both stopped, taking deep breaths. David went to him, picking him up, holding him close. Our son immediately calmed, putting his tiny hand on his father's cheek. What did you tell them? David asked quietly. That they can visit any time. At our house, that we'll bring Trevor to them for short visits, but no more all-day Monday babysitting. They'll hate that. I know. My dad will never forgive you. I know that too. David was quiet for a long moment, just holding Trevor, his eyes closed. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. She threw away my baby book. I'm sorry. No, I mean, that's not like her. She showed me that book every year on my adoption anniversary. She'd tell me the story of the day they brought me home, every single year. He looked at me, and there were tears in his eyes now. If she threw it away, she's not okay, is she? I went to him, put my arms around both of them. No, she's not. How bad is it going to get? I don't know. But we need to talk to her doctor. We need to understand what we're dealing with. And we need to make decisions based on what's real, not what we wish was real. He nodded against my shoulder, still holding Trevor. Dad's going to fight us on this. Let him. He'll say we're being cruel, that we're keeping their only grandchild away. They can see him every day if they want, just not alone, not anymore. David pulled back, looked at me. You really think she's that bad? I thought about Janet's face today, the confusion when I mentioned the missed meals, the way she'd looked at Trevor sometimes, like she was trying to remember something important, the increasing number of notes she kept leaving herself around their house, sticky notes everywhere, reminders for basic tasks. I think she's trying really hard to hide it, I said, and I think your dad is helping her hide it because he's scared. But yeah, I think it's bad enough that we can't trust her alone with our son. Okay, David said finally. Okay, we'll talk to her doctor, and we'll tell them no more Mondays. Your dad is going to be furious with me. He's furious with me too. He said I'm letting you control our family. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're protecting our son. I think I should have been listening to you months ago instead of dismissing your concerns. He kissed Trevor's head. I think I owe you an apology. You were trying to give your parents what they wanted. I get it. At the expense of your peace of mind. At the expense of Trevor's safety. That's not okay. We stood there in our kitchen, the three of us, while the evening light faded outside. My phone kept buzzing. Text after text from Frank and Janet. Voicemails. Then text from David's aunts, his uncles. The family gossip chain had clearly already started. "They're telling everyone their version," I said, glancing at the phone. "Let them. We know the truth." But knowing the truth and having people believe it were two different things. By 9 that night, I had 17 messages from David's relatives. Some were concerned, asking if everything was okay. Most were accusing. How dare we abandon Frank and Janet in their time of need? How dare we keep Trevor from them? Didn't we know how much they'd wanted a grandchild? Didn't we have any compassion?
The one that hurt most was from David's cousin Rachel. "I expected better from you, Margaret. They're elderly. They need help, not judgment. If you can't handle being part of this family, maybe you should reconsider whether you belong in it." I showed it to David. He immediately called Rachel. "Don't," I said. "It won't help. She doesn't get to talk to you like that." But he called anyway, and I listened to him defend our decision, his voice getting louder as Rachel apparently pushed back. It ended with him hanging up, his face flushed. "She said Mom is heartbroken. She said they spent the whole evening crying." "I'm sure they did." "She said we're being selfish." "Maybe we are," I admitted. "Maybe putting our son's safety first is selfish, but I'm okay with that." David looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, me too." The next morning, we called Janet's doctor. It took 3 days to get an appointment, and in those 3 days, the family pressure intensified. Someone started a group chat without us in it. We only knew because David's brother Michael, the only one who'd stayed neutral, sent him screenshots. They were planning an intervention. They decided we were being influenced by my paranoia, my overprotective nature, my need to control everything. They decided Janet was fine, and we were using her diagnosis as an excuse to cut his parents out of Trevor's life. "They want to come here," David said, staring at his phone. "Saturday, all of them, to talk sense into us." All of them, meaning? My parents, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, Rachel and Michael, maybe more. They want to ambush us in our own home. "They want to help," he said, but his voice was flat. "Do they? That's what they're calling it." I thought about 8 or 9 or 10 of David's relatives in our living room, all of them convinced I was the problem, all of them ready to pressure us into giving Janet and Frank what they wanted. "Tell them no," I said. "They'll come anyway. Then we won't be here." We spent Saturday at the park with Trevor, our phones turned off. When we came home that evening, there were cars in our driveway. They'd come anyway. David parked on the street. We could see them through our front window, all of them crowded into our living room. Someone had let them in. David's spare key that we'd given his parents for emergencies. "This is insane," David said. "This is your family. This is wrong." He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "They're in our house without permission." We sat there for several minutes, neither of us moving. Trevor had fallen asleep in his car seat, exhausted from the playground. Finally, David took a deep breath and got out of the car. I followed him, carrying Trevor. The front door opened before we reached it. Frank stood there, his face set in that same stubborn expression from Monday night. "About time," he said. "We've been waiting an hour." "You broke into our house," David said. "We let ourselves in. There's a difference. Now come inside and let's settle this like adults." We had no choice. Not with all our neighbors watching. Not with Trevor still asleep and vulnerable. We went inside. The living room was full. Everyone turned to look at us as we entered, and the judgment in their eyes was palpable. Janet sat in our armchair, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She looked small and frail and heartbroken. Rachel stood up first. "Finally, David, we need to talk about what's going on. Mom Janet has been beside herself." "You need to leave," David said. "We need to talk," Frank corrected. "Your wife has made some serious accusations about your mother, about us being unfit to care for our own grandchild." "Margaret didn't say you were unfit. She said Janet has Alzheimer's so bad she can't be trusted. She's telling everyone your mother is dangerous." "I never said dangerous," I interjected. "I said we needed to be realistic about." About what? About throwing away your in-laws like garbage the second things get hard?
From Aunt Linda, Janet's sister. About deciding you're the only one capable of raising that.
Baby? Nobody said that. Then why can't Frank and Janet babysit anymore? Why are you making them beg to see their own grandchild? They're not begging. They can see Trevor anytime. At your convenience, under your supervision, like they're criminals? Frank's voice rose. We raise David just fine. We can handle one baby 1 day a week. I looked at Janet. She was crying quietly, not meeting anyone's eyes. Janet, I said gently, can you tell everyone what happened last Tuesday? Her head snapped up.
What? With Trevor's diaper, do you remember? Yes, I changed him. Do you remember putting it on backwards? She blinked. I don't. No, I wouldn't have. You did, and when I picked him up, you said you couldn't remember if you'd given him lunch. I was tired that day. You were confused, I said, still gentle. You called Trevor David 3 times. People mix up names, Rachel jumped in. My mom calls me by my sister's name all the time. It's different. How? How is it different? Because you say so? David stepped forward. Because she threw away my baby book. Because she left the stove on. Because she forgot his medication. Because she's declining faster than anyone wants to admit. The room went silent. Janet's face crumpled. I didn't mean to. I'm trying so hard to remember everything. I write notes, I set alarms, but sometimes it's like my brain won't hold on to the information, and She stopped, covering her face with her hands. Frank went to her immediately. It's okay. You're okay. Don't let them make you feel bad about normal mistakes. They're not normal, I said quietly, and pretending they are doesn't help anyone. You're not a doctor, Aunt Linda snapped. No, but I'm a nurse, and I see this progression every day at work. And I'm telling you, as someone who cares about Janet, as someone who wants to help, this is moving faster than you think. We have an appointment with her doctor on Monday, David added, to discuss her care plan and how we can best support her. And you didn't think to include us in that? Frank's voice was dangerous now. You're making decisions about my wife's medical care without consulting me? You're invited to the appointment, David said, obviously, but we're going with or without you because we need to understand what we're dealing with. What you're dealing with, Rachel repeated, like she's a problem to be solved? Like she's someone we love who needs help, I corrected. Like she's someone whose disease is progressing and who deserves proper support instead of everyone pretending she's fine and putting more pressure on her to perform grandmother duties when she's struggling with basic tasks. She's not struggling, Frank insisted. She is, Janet whispered. Everyone turned to look at her. She was still crying, but her voice was steady. I am struggling. I forget things, important things. I tried to make spaghetti last week, and I couldn't remember how. I've made that recipe 1,000 times, and I stood in the kitchen with the pasta in my hand, and I couldn't remember what to do next. Frank had to walk me through it. Everyone forgets recipes, someone said. I forgot David's birthday, Janet continued. In May, I forgot my own son's birthday. We were at the store, and I saw a card, and I thought, oh, that's nice. And then Frank reminded me it was David's birthday the next day, and I had no idea. I had no memory of it coming up. The room was completely silent now. I forget where I am sometimes, she said, her voice breaking. I'll be in my own house, and suddenly I don't know which room I'm in or why I went there. Last week, I couldn't remember how to get to the grocery store, the store I've been going to for 20 years. Frank had to drive me. She looked up at me, her eyes red. And last Tuesday, I looked at Trevor, and for just a second, I didn't know who he was. I saw this baby in my house, and I couldn't remember whose baby he was or why I had him. I felt my throat tighten. It only lasted a few seconds, Janet said quickly. Then I remembered. But it scared me. It scared me so much. She turned to Frank. I can't do it anymore. I can't watch him all day and pretend I'm okay. What if I forget him for longer next time?
What if I can't remember and he needs something and I just blank?
Frank looked like someone had struck him. Janet, no, you're fine. You just need to... I'm not fine. Her voice rose, sharp and clear. Stop telling me I'm fine. Stop telling everyone I'm fine. I have Alzheimer's and it's getting worse and I need help. The silence that followed was deafening. Frank sat down heavily on the couch, his face in his hands. The relatives all looked at each other, uncertainty replacing the righteous anger from before. David crossed the room and knelt in front of his mother. We're going to get you that help, Mom, whatever you need, but first we need to be honest about what's happening. I don't want to lose him, Janet said, reaching out to touch Trevor's sleeping face. I don't want to miss his childhood because I'm sick.
You won't, I said, going to her other side. You'll see him all the time. But maybe instead of babysitting, we do shorter visits, lunch together, story time. Times when you can enjoy him without the stress of being responsible for all his care. And you'll bring him over? She looked at me with such hope it broke my heart. As often as you want. Every day if that's what you want. We're 10 minutes away. We can make this work. But we have to be realistic about your limitations. I wanted to be the fun grandma, she said softly. I wanted to take him places and teach him things and make memories like real grandparents do. You are real grandparents, David said firmly, and you'll make plenty of memories. Different ones than you imagined, maybe, but real ones, important ones.
Frank finally looked up, his eyes red. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. I've been pushing her, pushing both of us. I thought if we kept doing normal grandparent things, if we didn't let the disease change anything, we could beat it. We could prove it wasn't that bad. You can't beat Alzheimer's by pretending it doesn't exist, I said gently. You can only manage it, support each other through it, and let people help you. I didn't want help. I wanted my life to stay the same. I know, but it's not going to, and fighting that reality only makes it harder. We talked for another hour. The relatives slowly left, apologizing one by one for barging in, for the accusations, for not listening to Janet when she'd tried to tell them she was struggling. Rachel hugged me on her way out, crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I thought you were being cruel. I didn't understand. It's okay. Everyone wants to protect her. But you were protecting Trevor and her. I get it now. When everyone was finally gone, it was just the four of us. 5, counting Trevor, who'd woken up and was playing on the floor with his blocks. So what happens Monday? Frank asked. At the doctor? We find out how fast this is progressing, David said. We talk about treatment options. We make a care plan. Together. And Trevor? You can see him tomorrow if you want, I offered. Come for lunch. Stay as long as you like. We'll be right here if you need anything. Janet smiled through her tears. I'd like that. Can I read him a story? You can read him 10 stories. As they left, Janet paused at the door and took my hand. Thank you, she said quietly, for being brave enough to say what I couldn't. For protecting Trevor, even when everyone was angry at you. For seeing me when I was trying so hard to hide. You're going to be okay, I told her. Different than before, but okay. I promise. After they left, David and I sat on the couch, exhausted. Trevor climbed into my lap, babbling his nonsense words, happy and oblivious. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, David said. Standing up to your family? Watching my mom admit she's sick. Watching my dad break down. Knowing it's only going to get harder from here. I leaned against him, holding our son close. We'll figure it out, one day at a time. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. You believed me when it mattered. Almost too late, though. But not too late. That's what counts. We sat there until Trevor fell asleep again, then carried him to bed. As I tucked him in, I thought about all the Mondays ahead. The ones where his grandparents would visit instead of babysit, the doctor's appointments and difficult conversations and slow decline we'd navigate together. It wasn't the story any of us had imagined. It wasn't the grandmother-grandson relationship Janet had dreamed of, or the peaceful retirement Frank had planned for, or the supportive extended family I'd hoped to give my son.
But it was real. It was honest. And maybe that was more important than any of the fantasies we'd been clinging to.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have spoken up sooner or waited longer to avoid family conflict?